2025 didn't arrive with fireworks or leave with a parade. It arrived quietly, one ordinary day after another, disguised as routine, disguised as repetition, disguised as nothing special. And that's the dangerous part, because the years that change you the most rarely announce themselves. They don't scream transformation. They whisper responsibility. They test your character in moments so small you don't even realize they matter until they stack up and become your life. When I look back at 2025 and ask myself what I achieved, the first honest answer is not a list of milestones or trophies or external wins. What I achieved was awareness, and awareness is uncomfortable because once you see clearly, you can't unsee. You can't go back to ignorance. You can't blame circumstances the same way. You can't pretend you didn't know better. This year stripped away the illusion that someday things would magically change without me changing first. I achieved the ability to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. There were moments when quitting would have been easier, moments when distraction would have been sweeter, moments when excuses were lined up and ready to go. And sometimes I failed, sometimes I chose comfort, but the difference this year was that I noticed, I paid attention, I stopped lying to myself about why I wasn't doing the work, and that alone shifted something fundamental inside me. I achieved discipline in small, unglamorous ways, not the kind people applaud, but the kind that compounds quietly, showing up when I didn't feel like it, doing the work when nobody was watching, choosing progress over pride, understanding that motivation is unreliable, but systems are not. I learned that waiting to feel ready is just another form of procrastination dressed up as self-respect. I achieved clarity about what actually matters to me. Not what looks good on the outside, not what earns approval, not what fits someone else's definition of success. Clarity hurts because it forces you to admit how much time you've spent chasing things that don't fulfill you. But clarity also frees you. It narrows your focus. It makes your no stronger and your yes more intentional. I achieved resilience by surviving my own doubt. There were days when the voice in my head was louder than any external critic. Days when I questioned my abilities, my pace, my direction. But instead of letting that voice control me, I learned to challenge it, to ask for evidence, to separate feelings from facts, to keep moving even when confidence was nowhere to be found. I achieved self-respect by keeping promises to myself, and that might be the most underrated achievement of all. Every time I did what I said I would do, even in the smallest way, I rebuilt trust with myself. And self-trust is everything. Without it, goals mean nothing. With it, even uncertainty feels manageable. But 2025 wasn't just about what I achieved, it was also about what I lost, and loss is rarely talked about honestly because we're taught to fear it, to avoid it, to see it as failure. But loss is often the proof that growth is happening. I lost comfort. I lost the ease of familiar routines that no longer served me. I lost the luxury of staying the same and calling it stability. Growth demanded discomfort, and discomfort demanded sacrifice. There were moments when I wished I could go back to not knowing what I know now, because knowledge carries responsibility. Once you understand what needs to change, choosing not to change becomes a decision, not an accident. I lost excuses. I lost the ability to blame time, people, circumstances, or luck. This year made it painfully clear that while I don't control everything, I do control more than I was willing to admit before. And that realization is heavy, because responsibility is empowering, but it's also unforgiving. There's no one left to hide behind. I lost certain relationships, or at least the version of them that only existed when I stayed small. Growth has a way of exposing misalignment. Not everyone is meant to grow with you, and not everyone is supposed to understand your path. Letting go was hard, but holding on would have cost me myself. I lost certainty. I lost the illusion that life follows a neat, predictable timeline. I learned that clarity often comes after action, not before, that confidence is built through repetition, not contemplation. That waiting for guarantees is just another way of delaying responsibility. I lost time, time spent doubting, time spent hesitating, time spent learning lessons the hard way, and while it's tempting to regret that, I also understand that those losses were tuition. You pay for growth one way or another, either through discipline now or regret later. What 2025 taught me is that achievement and loss are not opposites, they're partners. You don't gain strength without losing comfort. You don't gain clarity without losing confusion. You don't gain self-respect without losing the habits that undermine it. Every level up requires a letting go. This year forced me to confront the gap between who I say I want to be and how I actually behave. And that gap is where most people get stuck. They live in intention but act in contradiction. I did that too, more times than I want to admit. But awareness turned that gap into a target instead of a blind spot. I learned that standards shape destiny more than goals ever will. Goals are optional. Standards are non-negotiable. When my standards changed, my behavior followed. I stopped asking how I felt and started asking what was required. I stopped romanticizing outcomes and started respecting process. I learned that confidence is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. Fear didn't disappear this year. It just stopped being in charge. I learned to see fear as information, not instruction, as a signal that something matters, not a sign to retreat. I learned that failure is not the enemy. Avoiding failure is. Every mistake this year taught me something about myself, about my patterns, about my blind spots. The real danger was not falling short, but refusing to learn why. I learned that identity drives behavior. When I started seeing myself as someone who follows through, someone who does the work, someone who doesn't need external validation to stay consistent, my actions slowly aligned with that identity, not perfectly, not instantly, but consistently enough to matter. I learned that growth is lonely sometimes. When you change, your environment doesn't always change with you, and that can make you question yourself. But solitude can be a teacher if you let it. It can sharpen your focus and strengthen your inner voice. I learned that discipline is an act of self-love, not self-punishment. It's choosing long-term respect over short-term relief. It's protecting your future self from the consequences your present self wants to ignore. When I look at what I achieved in 2025, I don't see a finish line. I see a foundation. I see someone who is no longer waiting to be saved by motivation, luck, or permission. I see someone who understands that progress is built in the boring moments, in the repetitions no one celebrates. When I look at what I lost, I don't see emptiness. I see space, space for better habits. Better boundaries, better decisions. I see the shedding of weights that were slowing me down without me realizing it. 2025 didn't make me extraordinary. It made me honest about my weaknesses, honest about my potential, honest about the work required to close the distance between the two. I enter the next chapter not with arrogance, but with resolve, not with certainty, but with commitment. I understand now that growth is not about massive breakthroughs, but about relentless alignment between values and actions. If there's one truth this year carved into me, it's that no one is coming to do the work for you. And once you accept that, once you stop resisting that reality, something powerful happens. You stop waiting, you stop negotiating, you stop hoping for a different outcome without a different input. What I achieved in 2025 cannot be fully measured yet. Some results will take years to reveal themselves, and what I lost will continue to echo as lessons, reminders, and recalibrations. But I know this much: I am no longer the same person who entered this year, because the questions I ask myself are harder, the standards I hold myself to are higher, and the excuses I allow myself are fewer.